Hello everyone. I am thankful to the Sunday Club for giving me this opportunity to discuss in a series of sessions the evolution of indirect tax system in the country. What we will do today is to have a look in a broad perspective the indirect tax system till the introduction of GST, that is goods and services tax. Thereafter in the subsequent sessions we will get into the details of what is GST, what are the various concepts in it, etc. As all of you would be aware, the fundamental principle in tax is that no tax should be levied without the authority of law. This is enshrined in Article 265 of the Constitution of India. Article 245 says that the Parliament can legislate for the whole or any part of the territory of India, and the state legislature can legislate for the whole or any part of the state. In line with this, Article 246 sets out the subjects in the 7th schedule which the Parliament can legislate, which the state legislature can legislate, and where both the Parliament and the state legislature will have concurrent powers to legislate. So we have list 1 that relates to the centre, list 2 that relates to the state, and list 3 where both the centre and the state can enumerate laws. In list 1, which we call as the union list, we will have reference to the goods and services or activities on which the centre can levy tax. For example, serial number 83 will refer to the duties of customs leviable on the import of goods. Entry 84 will refer to the duties of excise on goods manufactured or produced in India. And entry 92C will refer to the levy of service tax on various services rendered in the country. Similarly, list 2, which is the state list, we have entries relating to the various activities on which taxes can be levied by the state. For example, entry 52 will relate to the tax on entry of goods into a local area. Entry 53 will relate to the tax on consumption or sale of electricity. And entry 54, a tax on the sale or purchase of goods. This was earlier called as a sales tax and later on referred to as the value added tax or VAT. Thus, broadly, if you see, prior to GST, we had the customs duty, the central excise duty, and the service tax all under the centre, and the value added tax under the state. Now, what did each one of these taxes relate to? Customs duty was levied on all goods that are imported into the country. So, the taxable event was the import. Normally, there are two types of customs duties, the basic customs duty and the countervailing duty. Whenever the goods are cleared from the customs, both the basic customs duty and the countervailing duty are required to be paid. Central excise duty, on the other hand, is leviable on the activity of manufacture of goods and is paid whenever the goods are cleared from the factory. Service tax, the third tax, was leviable whenever anybody provides any service to another person for a consideration. Now, as far as state is concerned, whenever the goods are sold in a particular state, then on the sale of it, the sales tax was levied or subsequently VAT was levied. Now, in all these cases where there is a levy of central excise duty or service tax or VAT, we always had the concept of what was called as input credit. So, whatever tax was levied at the earlier stage was available as credit at the subsequent stage, and duty was payable only on the net value addition. So if 100 rupees is the value of an input and tax paid on that 10%, namely 10 rupees, and if the 100 rupees commodity is sold at 150 rupees and 10% is the tax payable, it will be 15 rupees that will be the tax payable. So we deduct 10 rupees which was input tax, and the remaining 5 rupees is my cost which the company will bear. So we have input tax credit relating to the inputs, we have input tax credit relating to the capital goods, and the various input services that are used to make a particular product or to render any service. Now, in addition to these broad taxes that were levied by the centre and the state, we had various different types of taxes like the surcharges and cesses relating to the supply of goods and services which were levied by the centre. Then we had the entertainment tax, the octroi tax, the entry tax, the purchase tax, all these were levied by the state. So prior to GST, we had numerable levies by the certain by the center and some by the state. We had approximately about 10 taxes levied by the center and about 10 or 12 levied by the state. Now, since there was multiplicity of taxes, the central government from time to time, along with the states, was always thinking that these numerous taxes on goods and services have to be consolidated and made into one tax that can be levied both on the goods and services. That is how these taxes came to be replaced by what we now call as the goods and services tax. Now, the goods and services tax, therefore, essentially subsumes the central excise duty, the service tax, the additional customs duty, the various surcharges and cesses that were levied by the center, the sales tax or the value added tax, the octroi and entry taxes, the entertainment taxes, the purchase tax, luxury tax, etc. levied by the state. Now, in this process of consolidating the taxes, there are a few taxes that are not subsumed under GST. Now, for example, the basic customs duty that is levied under the Customs Act whenever we import the goods, the excise duty and VAT on various petroleum products, the excise duty on tobacco products, the electricity tax levied by the state, the tolls that were levied by the road and the railway authorities, the property taxes, the stamp duties, then taxes on royalty, minerals, etc. were not subsumed under GST. So they continue to be levied even after the introduction of GST. Now, the goods and services tax, therefore, is essentially made up of three components, namely the goods services tax relating to the center, the goods and services tax relating to the state, and the one that is levied across the states. So we call them as CGST, we call them as SGST. G means the central, CGST means central GST, or SGST means state GST. So CGST, SGST and the IGST, that is the integrated goods and services tax. Now, let's also have a look at the constitutional journey of the introduction of GST. The first time when the government put forth the Constitutional Amendment Bill, which was called the 115th Amendment Bill, was in March 2011. When this bill was introduced, there was a proposal by the opposition parties that the bill should be sent to a standing committee for a detailed examination. The standing committee examined it for almost 2 years and gave a report in August 2013. By the time the Constitutional Amendment Bill could again be introduced and passed, it was May 2014 and the Constitutional Amendment Bill lapsed. Now, again after the elections in December 2014, the then Finance Minister Shri Arun Jaitley submitted the 122nd Constitutional Amendment Bill. This time also the opposition demanded that the bill should be sent for discussion to the standing committee. It was thereafter put for discussion in the parliament, and ultimately in May 2015, the Lok Sabha passed the Constitutional Amendment Bill. In September 2016, the President of India granted his consent for the Constitutional Amendment Bill to become an act. Now, some of the highlights of the 122nd Amendment Bill are that the Parliament and the state legislatures will have concurrent powers to make laws on GST and respect of the interstate goods and supply of interstate goods and services as well as imports. The centre had the exclusive power to levy what is called an IGST. Alcohol for human consumption was kept out of GST, and GST was to apply to the petroleum products on a later date. Now, this amendment bill also proposed a formation of a GST council, which will consist of the Union Finance Minister and the state finance ministers, and this council will meet from time to time to recommend rates of tax, period of levy of a particular additional tax, any special provisions for the levy of GST, etc. The amendment bill also proposed that the Parliament may by law provide compensation to the states for any loss of revenue because of the introduction of GST for a period of 5 years. This amendment bill was approved by the central and the state legislatures and gained a presidential assent, which post it was passed as the 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, you will recall that in Article 246, by virtue of that article, we had list 1, list 2 and list 3, on which the activities and different taxes were indicated. Now by this constitutional amendment bill, Article 246A was introduced, which was a special provision with regard to the levy of goods and services tax. Now by virtue of Article 246A, both the Parliament and the state legislature had the power to make laws with respect to goods and services. And as indicated before, for the interstate supply of goods and services as well as for imports, etc., the Parliament had the exclusive power to levy the IGST. Now in respect of petroleum products, namely those 5 petroleum products like, for example, petroleum crude, high-speed diesel oil, motor spirit, natural gas and aviation fuel, the GST Council was to recommend the date on which GST will be levied on these products. So after the introduction of GST, the union list, which we earlier referred to in the 7th schedule, is now reduced only to the duties of customs for the purpose of import and export, the duties of excise on those 5 mentioned petroleum products, as well as the tobacco and tobacco products. Similarly, the state list also got pruned only to the excise duty on alcohol for human consumption, as well as the taxes on the sale of petroleum products, apart from the taxes on entertainments, amusements, professional tax, etc. So the ultimate structure of a GST is like this. In respect of all supplies taking place within a state or a union territory, the single rate of GST will be bifurcated into CGST plus SGST or CGST plus the UTGST. Now in respect of interstate supplies, the GST will be called as IGST. So when we say that a particular commodity attracts 12% or 18%, and when we say it is one nation and one tax, what does it mean? It means that for all the supplies that are taking place within a state for a particular commodity, the combined rate of tax will be 12% or 18%, which will be split as 6 and 6 or 9 and 9. 6 for CGST, 6 for SGST, or 9 for SGST and 9 for. And in respect of interstate supply, the single rate of 18% would apply. So when we say one nation, one tax, it is as if a particular commodity will attract the same rate of tax, 12% or 18%, whether you supply it within a state or you supply it across the states. So this is the broad view of what GST is. Now the next session we will get into more finer details of the individual concepts of GST, like what is the taxable event, then when a tax liability will arise, who should pay the tax, what rate you should pay the tax, what value you should pay the tax, etc. Thank you so much.